All right, so this is a little video showcase I wanted to make for an idea I've been tinkering with off and on for a couple weeks. I've shown some people uh, these little guys that I've been working on. Just like designing little characters based on classic fantasy classes, but all interpreted as little dark faceless blobs with glowing eyes in the style of like a Final Fantasy Black Mage, but applied to every class: warrior, thief, mage, priest, blah blah blah. Anyway, my brain spun way out of control and ended up making it into like a concept for a game, which I am calling Venture Forth as a working title. And the idea, the concept of this game is that you're using pre-constructed decks of cards, shuffled and randomized, to essentially generate a classic kind of fantasy dungeon crawling experience, like a little bit Final Fantasy or Dragon Quest, a little bit like Dungeons and Dragons. Then it's a single player card game that you can just kind of play yourself if you just want to like scratch that little RPG itch on your own. Just like sitting at a table with some cards and some tokens and counters and things. So the crux of this is that there are five different types of cards involved. There's heroes, skills, items, monsters, and encounters. So heroes are these ones right here. And a hero cards are basically going to represent your character classes, like that make up your party. So when you're playing a game, you guys have four characters, four heroes of any the four base classes: warrior, thief, mage, priest. I said they're called base classes. I'll get into why other a little later. And you can see each one has stats. As so like from on the left side from top to bottom we have attack or strength, defense, intelligence, speed, charisma, and luck. Each one of those has different impacts on gameplay, obviously. And at the top right, those two numbers are their maximum HP and their maximum MP. At the bottom, you can see the name is Warrior. 1 star, that's sort of like a rarity, but also like their card rank, I guess you could say. And then the 001 is just because like that's card number one out of all the cards in the game. As you can see, each class has their own stats. So the warrior has good attack and defense, good health. Everything else is a bit below average. Thief is fast, charismatic, good luck, but pretty weak physically. Mage is decent intelligence, high MP. Everything else is a bit low. Priest, everything else is very low, but very good intelligence and MP. In addition to their stats, each character also has, if you look at the back of the card, you see stats on what they can equip. So there's different types of armor, different types of weapons that every class can use. So the warrior can use plate armor, mail armor, helmets, gauntlets, and shields, and they can wield swords, axes, spears, daggers, bows, maces. And then underneath that, we've got a little flavor text quote, and down at the bottom of the card, there's a hang on. Want to have better pointer functionality. Oh, I'm not super well versed in tabletop simulator, so some of the shortcuts and things still elude me. Forgive me. At the bottom, he's got an ability called Power Attack. Action, it costs 1 MP, so he's got 3, so he can use his ability 3 times. And make attack against enemy deals +2 damage. Each of these classes is gonna have their own different equipment. So Thief's a little bit more limited. He can only use mail armor, gauntlets, daggers, bows, and his actions he can steal. He can pull. He can nab an item or some money from an enemy. Flip a coin, feds draw those item drops. We'll get to item drops later when I go over the monster cards. So the mage and the priest, you can see, have their equipment also includes a type of magic, black magic or white magic. And we'll get into that more when we get into skills. You see, the mage can regain MP, and the priest has a prayer action that lets you do like a little bit of light healing without having to spend any MP. So the way that the game works is you're sort of emulating a dungeon crawl. So you have the encounter deck here. So when the game starts, you're gonna draw a card off the top of the encounter deck. So we got the ice room. So they're in the ice room currently. And what does that mean? Well, there's a battle. You're gonna have to fight 4 monsters. Loot 2 items, blah blah blah. More flavor text. And there's sort of like a special effect here. Character's current control speed check on a fail. That character's afflicted with stun to the next turn. Characters with flying are immune to this effect. So the important thing here, battle 4 monsters. So what we're gonna do is you draw 4 monsters off of the monster deck. And it's like, cool. Now this is your battle that you're fighting in the ice room. So battle starts, and all that. First things first, every monsters obviously have the same stats as the heroes that you're playing as. Everyone has their speed rating, and that determines turn order. Highest speed goes first. So you can see the Rock has speed 6. Wolf has a speed 5. Goblin also has a speed of 5. Speed 3. It helps, probably just gonna help to arrange these in terms of speed order. So Thief, Warrior, these 2 are tied. And we start at the top. So the Rock is gonna go first. What does the Rock do on its turn, you might say? You can see if Rock has an ability called Flying. It's a passive effect. He can only be hit by magic attacks and ranged attacks. So now the numbered thing beneath the flying skill is the logic or the effect that determines how the monster acts in battle. Makes a normal attack, physical, melee. These are just sort of identifiers for, what type of attack we're talking about here. I guess the hero with the lowest HP. Character lowest HP is going to be the priest. So the Rock, for its turn, will attack the priest. Rock has 6 attack. Priest has 2 defense. So that would be 4 damage to the priest, which would knock him out. I don't claim to have balanced all the stats here for this game thus far. This is kind of flying by the seat of my pants to just get the concept off the ground, basically. You can also see the Rock has 2 stars, so it's a bit more of advanced enemy. Let's see if we can get a... Let's get the giant spider in here instead. Spider has speed of 5, so we got 3 monsters, speed of 5. What happens if the speed is tied? I don't know. Probably heroes would go first, I imagine. Otherwise, might just be like alphabetical order. I don't know. Haven't decided yet. Like I said, this is a concept. So we're going speed of 5 first. So we'll say the Thief gets to go first. What's the Thief going to do? No, it's your control, so the Thief can do whatever you want. But I think for now, we'll just have the Thief attack. So, Thief has an attack of 3, and you can see this Goblin has a defensive 2. So, Thief attacks the Goblin, attack 3, defense of 2, Goblin will take 1 damage. Paper Mario rules. It's pretty basic. So the next speed goes to the giant spider. What's the giant spider going to do? Okay, so this is a bit of a a better indicator for what monsters do. So you can see there's a 1, there's a 2, and there's a 3. So you start at the top. What's this monster going to do? Well, it's going to use Web on its first turn. Web is a skill that has cost an action, cost 1 MP. Spire has 3 MP, so I can use Web 3 times total. Uh, so we would choose a random hero. Let's just say Warrior for now. Target rolls a speed check. So I haven't quite figured out exactly how checks are gonna work yet. My current running concept is just like roll a die like a D12 maybe because I'm partial to the D12. And then just try to roll a number equal to or lower than the relevant stat. So Warrior has speed 3, roll a 12, 12 higher than 3. Warrior fails the check. What happens if it fails? Inflict stun on the target for 3 turns. So I don't know how to rotate cards. I'm sure there's a way. Oh, there we go. Turn the warrior sideways so he's stunned. Status condition stun means he can't really do anything right now. So next speed after 5 is going to be the goblin. What's the goblin do? Okay, so you see here, its number 1 thing is to use this ability Call for Help, which basically summons more goblins into the fight but that only happens if it's at 2 HP or less. It's not at 2 HP or less yet. It still has 3 HP total because it's only been dealt 1 damage. So we go to step 2 on its logic. If it doesn't use this step number 1, otherwise, make a normal attack physical melee against a random hero. So we'll say this time it's the thief. So attack 3, defense 2. The thief will take 1 damage. Next up will be the wolf. So it's got passive ability plus 1 attack at least 1 other active monster. There are. So it makes a normal attack against the hero with the lowest defense. So its attack is 5, lowest defense, mage or priest. So we'll say the mage for this one. Mage will take 3 damage. So I'm gonna get to the bandit. What's the bandit gonna do? Number 1, bandit tries to use pilfer, which is an action. Flip a coin. If heads, that steals gold from the player, plays them on the bandit. For now, we'll just say that the coin toss was tails, so we don't have to futz with that right now. Can we get a coin? Is that something we can do? Oh yeah, we can. There we go. The game of tails. Pilfer fails. So then after that, we're going to get to the mage and the priest, which are tied. Well, what's the mage going to do? Because his attack sucks, so he can't really do anything. He hasn't spent any MP yet. So that's going to bring us to another type of card, which is going to be the skill cards. And you're going to acquire these as you play the game, and they're going to go into your hand. Perfect. So we're going to say at some point in this adventure, we drew a card from skill deck, and we got this one. We got Flare. So this is a black magic skill. As I said, looking at what the mage can equip, he can equip black magic. So we can equip this skill. to the mage. And the reason I put the skill down all the way at the bottom is so you can just sort of quickly and easily just stack the cards on top. And you can just, like, anytime you just want to see what this character can do, you just flip it over. You've got, like, a nice list of skills. So the mage can now cast Flare. That's going to cost 2 MP. 9 still have 7 left. Just deals 3 straight fire damage to a target. Nope. Boop, boop, boop. 3 damage to the goblin. He's taking 4 damage. Has 4 HP. The goblin has been felled. So what happens now, or maybe at the end of all the combat, once they've defeated everything, you can see the goblin's worth 1 XP. So we'll get blue tokens will represent XP. And there's an item drop table here that each enemy will have. See here it says party luck. So that's where luck comes into play. You can see we've got 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Party's total luck is 14. So you can see here, when we fell a goblin, if the total party luck is between 10 and 20, then we get 1 gold. Yay! And then that'll just go to the discard pile somewhere. And the priest's turn would be next. And priest is a bit fragile, so we can just say that the priest will defend, which will just increase their defense stat. I don't know if it's like +2, +3 for the turn, but it just increases their defense for the round. And then we cycle back to the beginning of the initiative order once everyone is gone. We go back to the giant spider. And what's next on its logic? If Web is successful, which it was, then it makes a normal attack against the same target on its following turns. So, since it's stunned the warrior, it would try then to make attack against the warrior. But it's got 4, warrior has 5. Excuse me. Giant Spider has 4 attack, warrior has 5 defense, so Spider can't do anything to the warrior right now. There might be like some element of randomization or RNG, like it might be like, oh, roll a d4 and add that to your, attack, just so it's not just like immediately locked down. Like nothing left could actually like do damage to the warrior because their defense is so high. So it's like just to keep the battle from becoming, a predetermined outcome, basically just on the fact that the warrior's defense is so high, none of the enemies left can damage it. I'd probably introduce some kind of element of randomization like that. I completely forgot this whole time to be taking into account the ice room effect. So on each character, so the fact that it says each character, that takes into account both heroes and monsters. So on any combatant's turn, they would need to be rolling a speed check. Rolling a d12, seeing if it's equal to less than their speed. And if they don't, then they get stunned for a turn, can't do anything because they slip and fall on their arse. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, and getting through and showing off the concept that the heroes have successfully defeated all the monsters here. So we see XP. One, two, three, four. Four more XP. One gold, two gold, three, four gold. So that just leaves us with a total of 5 gold as added to the goblin. So we'll go in the discard pile. So we're now left in the ice room, having defeated the monsters. Now we can, as an action, we can loot the room. It says the loot is 2 items. So we get, I'm gonna keep just fucking things up with the tabletop simulator. Nope. Put that back. So we've got 2 items in our hand now. We've got the Gloves of Strength and the Ring of Invisibility. So you can see the Gloves of Strength grant a +1 to attack. So once you have an item in your possession, you can just equip it to a character. And to do that, didn't want to do that. So the warrior has 5, gets +1 from the Gloves of Strength. Also grants additional +1 attack if has no weapon equipped. Where it currently has no weapon equipped, so that's going to be a total +2. So he's got +7 from fighting barehanded, technically. We have the Ring of Invisibility. So this one, as you can see, there's a skill at the bottom. So if we equip this to one of our heroes, it'll grant them an ability that they can use during combat as an action. Until the next turn, the hero can't be the target of enemy skills. That'd be probably a good one to put on the priest. As you can see, there's also, up at the top left corner, this is listed as an accessory. The gloves are also listed as an accessory. And what that means is that, like, if a character already has one accessory equipped, you can't equip another accessory to them. So since the warrior already has the Gloves of Strength taking up their accessory slot, they can't equip the Ring of Invisibility. So we've defeated the monsters, we have looted the room. After that, we would attempt to search for an exit, which means that gets discarded, and we'll draw a new room from the encounter deck. 4-way room. 3 monsters. When you search for an exit in this room, draw 3 cards from the counter deck to choose in place. That's not going to come into play right now, but there would be 3 monsters to fight. Now, as I was talking about with the heroes, you can see they're in the 1-star. That's like you can consider that a rank, sort of an indicator of a general indicator of strength. So you can see these monsters that are fighting the Dragon Hatchling, the Rock, the Goblin Chief. These are all rank 2 monsters, so they're a bit tougher. And it goes off the Rock when we tried to fight it the previous time, just absolutely bodied, the priest or whatever. So, fortunately, our heroes are not limited to the strength that they have, because the point of gaining experience is there's a couple ways you can spend this. There are 3 main ways that I've conceptualized you can spend experience. You can spend experience points to just increase a hero's attributes. This is like, we'll spend a couple of experience to get the thief +1 attack just permanently. It's just a flat boost. I'm not sure, again, disclaimer, This is just a rough concept. I don't claim any of this is balanced. None of this is worked out. None of this is finalized. This is just ideas at the moment. Second way you can spend experience is I think you can spend some of it to draw cards from the skill deck, and that's how you can learn new abilities for characters to use. But the most exciting way to spend, you know, experience points is you can rank up your heroes. So say we'll spend all our experience here, and I don't think drawing from the hero deck is going to be as randomized. I think like you going into it will have already prepared ahead of time what you want in the hero deck. So we'll see. We have a dwarf. Let's look at the dwarf. You can see the dwarf stats are quite a bit beefier than anything. That's because it's a rank 2, which you can see from 2 stars at the bottom. And look on the back of the dwarf. Ranks up from warrior. You can equip plate armor, helms, axes, maces. So he's a bit more limited in the equipment he can have. That's going to vary from class to class. But he's got 2 skills. He can do cleave. He's got a passive called Nose for Gold. It's going to earn us extra gold after every fight. You see up at the top, see like when we look at a warrior, it says base class. So the warrior is just like a starting character that you'll have at the beginning of the game. The dwarf ranks up from warrior. So what this means is we can just drop the dwarf on top. Oh, Lord. Good enough. As the reason why, like I said, when you look at the skill cards, like the actual like skill description goes at the bottom, so you can just like drop a hero on top, put it under your hero, and then all the skills that they have available will be listed. So when you rank up a hero, obviously they get better stats. They may have to change some of their equipment, but also they keep any skills that they had in their previous class. So not only can the dwarf use cleave and have the Nose for Gold passive, but they can also still use power attack that they had when they were a warrior. So this is how your heroes are going to get stronger. Like the main way they're going to get stronger as you play the game is you're going to be spending this experience that you earn from fighting monsters to rank up and turn them into better, stronger versions of themselves. And it's just going to compound as you. Like this is a rank 2 hero, they can go up to rank 3. And every base class is going to have multiple options for ranking up. So like the thief can rank up into an acrobat. Alternatively, they can rank up into an elf. So it ranks up from thief, ranks up from thief. In addition to the dwarf, the warrior could also become a knight or a fencer. So let's look at our options for the warrior, because we were looking at dwarf. Dwarf is meteor attack, but drops a little bit in terms of defense. Better charisma, better health. More limited in terms of equipment. You obviously can't use swords or mail armor or bows or shields or things like that. It's just, axes and maces. And they've got cleave, which makes which costs 2 MP, so it's a bit more expensive. But if it hits, you can just like permanently decrease an enemy's defense for the rest of the battle. So you're gonna just be a compounding effect and make it easier for your other companions, other heroes to do damage to that enemy. You also could do with the fencer. See, fencer really high attack, much faster, much luckier, but only very slightly more health, and everything else is kind of worse. You also see even more limited equipment because they can only wear armor, helmets, and swords. They can only fencer can only use swords. But they've got a skill called Wide Slash, which lets you make a normal attack against two targets at the same time. And they also parry, which, as you can see, parry is listed as a reaction, so that's an effect that's going to trigger in response to an enemy attacking you rather than you choosing to activate that on your turn. You can grant yourself a bonus to defense equal to your attack. As you can see, their defense is really high. Their attack is really high, so that's going to be a huge boost to defense. Basically, make them unbeatable. And there's the knight. You can see they're a bit more open in terms of equipment, but still technically more restricted than the base warrior, because that's ultimately how ranking up is going to work, is you get more and more powerful, but also more and more specialized. So the knight can do a shield bash, which, as you can see, is an action, but also requires that they have a shield equipped in the first place. They get a passive effect, where if an enemy makes normal attack that would target one of your other heroes while they're weakened 3 or less HP, then the warrior's just gonna take that hit for them. Or the knight is gonna take the hit for them, I should say. As you see, the knight, little more attack, good chunk more defense, very solid in terms of like HP and things like that. So they're not as obviously not as strong as the dwarf or the fencer in terms of like raw damage, but they're a lot tankier and can take hits better. And that's ultimately what, ranking up is going to amount to, is it's like you have the warriors, their base class, and it's like they're strong and also can take hits, so what's going to be more important to you? Like, if you want them to hit harder, you might be the dwarf because they have more attack, can do cleave, but if you want them to be more of a tank, then you'll rank up into knight. I'm partial to knights personally, so we're just going to say that we're just going to choose to rank up into knight for this one. Obviously, I don't have all the heroes. I kind of just did a few cards for each deck to get the point across. So, likewise for the thief, we have two options here. We have the acrobat and the elf. I made elves and dwarf classes as just sort of a shout out to classic D&D and other fantasy games where, elf and dwarf were considered classes as opposed to just races. So what's the acrobat do? Well, slightly more attack, slightly more defense, but way faster and very lucky. So an acrobat's going to be good for going first in battle, and also with their high luck, they're going to get you better item drops when you defeat enemies. But they're very limited in what they can equip. They can only do staffs. That means they can't equip any armor whatsoever. I haven't listed accessories as something in hero equipment just because that's standard. Every hero can equip accessories. No class is going to limit you for that. That's the plan anyway. I feel like that's something that would be more of an exception than a rule, Like if there's like a certain hero class that couldn't equip accessories, I would just list it as a passive that's like, oh, can't equip accessories, rather than have the list can't equip accessories on every single other hero. So the acrobat doesn't actually get any actions that they can do in combat, but they do have one reaction where they can have any amount of damage they would take, which is basically sort of like a rogue's uncanny dodge in Dungeons and Dragons, and they have a sure-footed passive. They're immune to stun. So remember when we were fighting the giant spider, and they're using web on their first turn to inflict stun. Acrobat would be a good counter for that because they can't be stunned, so they would just be immune to the spider's web ability. Pretty cool stuff. Elf, bit more attack, faster, more MP too. Good charisma. Nothing amazing on the elf, but pretty good all around. The only weapon they can equip is bows, so they are going to be limited to only making ranged attacks because they're, an archer. As you can see, they're Cupid's arrow skill. They're required to have a bow equipped in order to use that, so you are incentivized to equip the elf with bows. If you hit with Cupid's arrow, the enemy that you hit can't use actions that would deal damage to any of your heroes. I guess you consider it charmed, but I didn't list that as like a standard status condition the way like stunned or sleep would be. Which the elf is also immune to sleep, so that's another beneficial effect depending on the encounter. For now, I think we're going to put the acrobat onto the thief. And of course, they'll retain damage when they rank up. You don't get automatically healed just because you change classes, but healing can happen in other ways, either through skills or items or things, anything like that. Um, let's move on to some other things for the moment. So we'll get things up. Let's see. So eventually, in as you're going through an encounter, you'll encounter something like a boss room. When you play the boss card. So the boss card, I don't have any at the moment. Those are going to be like special monster cards that are held separately outside the monster deck, waiting to be triggered when you reach, a specific point in the dungeons. It tells you it's boss time, and then you're going to pull out the big monster, and it's going to be a boss fight. Once you've completed the boss fight, you've completed the dungeon. Hooray! And then you'll get, length of games can vary. I'm sort of envisioning like three different game lengths, which you can go on a quest, which will mean you'll go through one dungeon, fight the boss at the end, game's over. Or there can be an adventure, which is going to be two or three quests sort of linked together across, different decks. Like each dungeon is going to be its own encounter deck paired with, appropriate monsters and things like that. But if you're doing like a longer game like an adventure rather than a quest, you'll be swapping out the encounter monster decks in between dungeons. And then, there could be an even longer one, which is a campaign, which might be two or three whole adventures stitched together. So that might be, 6 to 10 different quests you're doing in a row if you want to emulate sort of a long form story. But in between dungeons, assuming that you're doing a longer game, you can do various downtime activities. Like you can do the good old take a good old rest at the inn, and that's gonna recover your health, get your heroes back up to fighting form. Another thing that you can do is you might go to a shop. And if you encounter a shop, then you're like, stop. Okay. Sorry, like I said, tabletop simulator shortcuts and things are debating my existence right now while recording this. Draw, say, like 3 items off of the item deck. And be like, oh, those are the items that the shopkeeper has for sale. Because as you'll see, may have noticed it when we were looking at the Ring of Invisibility and the Gloves of Strength, but in addition to like the type of item, they also have a gold value attached. So if you want to buy these things, you have to pay that gold amount to the shopkeeper because that's their value. We only got 5 gold from the encounter that we went through, so we can't afford anything. But, like any good fantasy shopkeeper, they do also enjoy buying things. So what we can do is we got the Ring of Invisibility. And if we don't feel like putting that on anybody, we can sell it because it is valued at 20 gold. And obviously, you're not going to sell things for as much as you bought them for. So when selling an item, you only get half the value. When buying, you pay the full value. When selling, you only get half the value. But since it's valued at 20, if we sell the Ring of Invisibility, that's going to net us 10 gold. So we now have 15 to work with. So we've got Tower Shield, Flanged Mace, or Chainmail. The Knight can't do anything, can't use his shield bash unless he has a shield equipped. So let's go ahead and spend 10 to grab that tower shield. And anything you don't buy is just going to go back into the item deck. So that's basically what progression is going to look like for your characters. We're going to slap that shield onto the Knight in addition to the Gloves of Power. So now we got the Knight with 6 attack, 7 defense. Gloves of Power give a +1 attack, and the Tower Shield gives them +2 defense. And the Gloves of Power also additionally give them additional +1 as long as they don't have a weapon equipped, which they currently don't. So the Knight is currently rocking 8 attack and 9 defense, which is pretty sick. And not to mention, they can also use the power attack skill that the warrior had. Almost said the wrong name. So it's +2 damage. So they've got 8 attack. They want to rock it up against something like that we fought earlier, like the spider. Only got 2 defense, and it has 8 attack now. So the spider's gonna take 6 damage just from a regular attack. If we use power attack, they'd be taking 8 damage. So you can see there's gonna be a big power jumps that you gain by ranking up and just equipping your characters properly. As you can see, items also have ranks down at the bottom. So the Tower Shield is a rank 2 shield. Rank 1 might be just like a regular wooden shield. And then currently, for the most part, things are going to top out at rank 3. So you might get like an adamantine shield or a mithril shield or something at rank 3, which is going to give you an even higher boost to defense. And as I said, each base class is going to have three rank up options, and each one of those rank up options is going to have three rank up options for them additionally. So the warrior could choose from the knight, the dwarf, or the fencer, and win with the knight. And the knight is going to have three rank up options when they want to level up, and then those three rank up options are going to be different from what's available to the fencer, or the dwarf. So just heroes alone would is hypothetically in rank it come out to like I think I did the math like 52 different heroes available to build your party out of. If you're including all the different ranks available, all the different rank ups available. Oh, mush mouth today. Uh, and to conclude, let's just look at some of the other cards that we have available because I made a set of 9 for every deck type available right now. To show them off, got power attack. Yeah, so that's the same skill that the warrior has by default. So if you equip that to the warrior, you're not going to get anything. You're just going to have two of the same skill. But you can put that in any of your other heroes, and you can just sort of like cross training. You can put a warrior skill onto your thief or your mage as they rank up, just in case you want them to have that warrior skill. And not every skill is going to be like that. Like some of these are going to be unique. Like I don't know that any class is going to have backstab. There might be an assassin class that gets this by default. Doesn't require the dagger to be equipped, so that makes sense. And then this is also just like where spells are going to come from. So it's refresh. This is going to be your basic, remove status effects type spell. And not all of them are going to be like actions or spells. Like there's also going to be passives like draw attacks, which requires them to have armor equipped. So again, sort of those sort of limits on who exactly can use it, but otherwise it's largely very free form who you want to put these skills on. We also see in spells this is where intelligence comes into play, is these spells do require a certain intelligence, so like this is a white magic skill that requires intelligence 5, so the priest can cast this no problem. I like that drawing. That one turned out good. Some skills will require you meet a threshold and like a different attribute, but that's not necessarily standard, whereas spells will always require a certain level of intelligence in order to cast. And see, Fireball, this is a rank 2 skill. This is the sort of leveled up version of Flare that we gave to the mage earlier. And this requires intelligence 7, so the mage could not cast this yet until theoretically they rank up to a class that has higher intelligence. But it's 6 damage. It's a big spell. I like this one too. Sword Extra Spirit, so you kind of have to have a weapon equipped, but you can just instant kill one enemy, as long as they're not a boss, of course. In addition to the monsters we were fighting earlier, we also got Dragon Hatchling. Ain't he cute? So its logic is basically to have it try to use Fire Breath, otherwise it's going to make like a claw or bite attack. There are going to be, as you can see, there are creature types or monster types. So, like, we fought a regular goblin. This is a goblin chief. In the top left, you can see this also has the goblin type. And it is going to synergize because they have, if there are other active goblins, they're going to use Warhorn, which is going to grant those other goblins a buff to their next attack. Otherwise, they just kind of specifically target the weakest hero. As you know, the item drops, most of these are gold, but if your party has very high luck, you defeat a goblin chief, you get 2 1-star items. So that's when we're going to go over to the item deck. You're just going to like draw some things until you get 2 1-star items. And you're going to get both of those added to your hand because the goblin chief drops 2. Oh, I pulled a bunch out. 1-star items. So you're just going to draw for cards from the item deck until you get 2 1-star items. Add those to your hand. Lock. Yeah, this one gets dangerous. Oh, okay, so the bandit leader has cool synergy. With the regular bandit. Remember, the regular bandit uses a skill called Pilfer on the first turn. You flip a coin, if heads, then you roll 1d4, and the bandit basically steals that much gold from you, the player. And it's going to put those coins onto the bandit card, and if you manage to knock the bandit out, you're going to get that gold back. Otherwise, if it gets another turn, as you can see, logic number 2, it's going to attempt to flee. And if the attempt to flee fails, or if Pilfer failed on the first turn, then they're just going to resolve to making regular attacks against a random hero each turn. So that's just going to sort of simulate, the AI or the dungeon master fiat in a traditional RPG is just sort of simulated by each monster card having these steps that tell you, the player, how they're going to play. But like I said, we've also got the bandit leader, who's going to start their first turn by using a skill called Intimidate, which forces all your heroes to make a charisma check, and if they fail, then they get stunned because they're just scared by the bandit leader. But synergizes with regular bandits because bandit leader has speed 5, regular bandit has speed 3, so the bandit leader is going to go first. And if they get a chance to use Intimidate, then any bandits who follow up by using Pilfer, it automatically succeeds, and they're going to steal your gold. Don't want that to happen. Fire Elemental, no attack. Fire Elemental has 0 physical attack because they are a spirit, so sort of like a magical creature. And sort of like the way elementals work in games like classic Final Fantasy is melee attacks are going to be not very effective against them, which in this case translates to them just having very high defense. But they are weak to ice, because as you can see, there are damage types in this game. Like Flare dealt fire damage, so there's going to be spells that deal ice damage, and those spells will deal double the damage to the fire elemental. As you can see, also at the bottom, and their otherwise logic make a normal attack, and rather than being physical melee like we've seen on most of these cards so far, the fire elemental's normal attack is magical fire and intelligence, which means magical as opposed to physical. Fire is the damage type specifically. And intelligence means that they use intelligence for their regular attacks rather than their attack stat. So they can still do a decent amount of damage despite having 0 attack because they're going to be damaging magically rather than physically. So for items, we already saw the gloves of strength and the tower shield. Um, those are all equipment that we've seen so far, but there's also going to be consumable items like potions. So for example, the apple potion, you use it, just heals 3 damage from one hero. And consumables, the way consumables work is they'll just play them from your hand on a hero's turn, and then they get discarded. But items are kind of unique in that they are never really out of the game. Like a monster, when you defeat a monster in combat, it's going to go to the graveyard, and then like it's just gone. You don't have to worry about that coming back unless the specific artifact tells you to pull a monster out of the graveyard. Items like consumables and equipment will actually just go back into rotation because it's like it's a basic potion. You can find these in like any treasure chest. So you use a potion, it goes back in the item deck, and you can find another potion. And there may be certain cards that don't play by that rule, like any like rank 3 sort of like legendary equipment. May tell you that like once you found it, if you choose to get rid of it, it's removed from the game. So you can't just like farm for Excaliburs to sell. There's only going to be one available to you when playing the game. Angel Feather, that's your standard, Phoenix down, resurrect a fallen hero type of item. Rough spun hat, this is the basic headgear equipment for the mage. Smelling salts, this is another consumable. This is the status condition item for curing sleep if you need to wake someone up. Chainmail, that's a basic type of armor. Every class has their own types of like armor, headgear, and things like that. So warrior classes, for the most part, will be using plate mail, helmets, and swords. Thief heroes will be wearing mail and gauntlets and using daggers or bows. Mages will be wearing cloaks, hats, and wielding staves. Priests will be wearing robes, hoods, and wielding rods. And as we've seen from like the fact that the warrior and the knight, yeah, so the warrior can also be using mail and gauntlets and daggers and things like that, so they can reach across. There's going to be some cross pollination across classes depending on exactly which hero you're using. Flanged mace. Everybody loves a good flanged mace. Let's look at the encounters. Got the boss room, which just immediately conjures the boss. As you can see, limit 1 per deck because you don't want to have like too many, chances to trigger the boss encounter. Boss encounters may trigger another way. It's like otherwise it's not like the boss room is like necessary to have in every single deck. Again, conceptualizing, haven't quite figured out how that works exactly. So there's also going to be encounters that aren't just thrusting you into combat. So the Riddling Gatekeeper is supposed to be emulating the concept of like a magical statue that's going to posing a riddle to the party, and you can't advance until you are able to solve the riddle, which here is emulated just by the fact that the statue is going to roll a d8, and you have to try to roll a higher number. And the higher intelligence a hero has, the better die they get to roll against the what was rolled for the statue's riddle. Just fun challenges like that to try to emulate things other than just combat every single time. Also going to be rooms like Save Point. No monsters, no loot. The only thing here is that it's kind of convoluted to word for a game like this, but the essence of it is that like you get to the save point, you get to save your adventure, and then if you die, you can just respawn here at the save point rather than having to start the dungeon over again. That's the idea, basically. I tried to word that as effectively and concisely as I could, but that's sort of a high concept effect for a card like that. Sand Trap, this is a room that fills up with sand. So, yeah, so some of these rooms are going to have effects that trigger during combat. So they're going to have a speed count that you'll have to keep track of. So every time you get to a turn that would go to characters who have speed 5, rooms will go last. You put a counter on it, which is just going to be like, boop, boop, every time a turn 5 turn comes around in a round. And as you get more counters, more effects will trigger. So yeah, so if you get 3 counters, all the characters in the fight have their speed halved, which in a fight doesn't make a whole lot of difference because the characters with highest speed are still going to go first, so it wouldn't normally change the turn order, but it does mean that this effect is going to trigger earlier in the round as the fight goes on. But it becomes more and more dangerous as the room fills with more and more sand. Also, there's just indulgent things like Treasure Vault, which is going to be a big fight. But also, you get 10 gold and you get 2 items. That's a big loot drop to get from a room. And obviously, since these are all going to be pre-constructed decks that you're playing with in order to simulate the adventure, you can't just load up your encounter deck with treasure vaults to get all the best equipment right off the bat. There is going to be some balancing effects in play to sort of help keep things paced in a natural way so that you aren't just going to be able to like make a deck full of all your best stuff and get it right away and just steamroll over everything. I do want to make sure that the game is like actually simulating an adventure the way it would play out. Bottomless Pit. So this one introduces a new action that heroes can do during combat. You can attempt to push enemies into the hole to immediately KO them. But likewise, when a hero takes damage, you have to flip a coin, make a speed check, and if you fail, then you fall down the hole. And if anything has flying, then they can't be pushed down the hole because that wouldn't really make sense. And there's the Traveling Shopkeep, which is just you encounter a friendly shopkeeper in the middle of the dungeon who's just happy to sell you items. At double the cost, of course, because, they're taking advantage of you. Yeah, so that's the basic concept I have for the game right now. Obviously, a lot of things need some fine-tuning. A lot of things aren't really fleshed out or balanced or anything like that. But I hope I was able to get across the idea of the game, and I hope it's something that seems like it could be fun if it was fully built and designed properly. That's my goal. But yeah, I would be happy to hear anybody's thoughts, suggestions, compliments. I thrive on praise. Um, that's a joke, but not really. Yeah, if anybody has any thoughts or critiques or suggestions about the concept, I would love to hear it. Again, disclaimer: this is all super super rough right now. Nothing finalized. Nothing that I claim to be balanced and in perfect working order. Even the art's not finalized yet. I was kind of rushing through the last few cards pretty quickly, so they got a bit rough. But yeah, thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Let me know what you thought. Mwah.